the weekend, which makes me so happy. I really have no plans for this weekend. I don't know where the weekend is going to take me, but if it ends up being a chill weekend, I'm hoping that I can get a lot of reading done. I've just been such in a mood to sit down and binge read, and I feel like my life has been quite busy the past few months, and I haven't had a ton of time to just sit down and read. And I hope that the weather will be decent so that we can be outside as well and read. So yeah, let's see how much reading I get done this weekend. First things first, I need to go to the grocery store, grab some things for dinner tonight, and grab some Olipop because we're out. And yeah, I'm just gonna take you guys along with me and see how much reading I can do in a weekend. So I stopped into Winco. Tell me why I just found Happy Place by Emily Henry, a hardback, for $5.98. I already have this book. I don't have it in hardcover though. I might just have to get it. That is crazy. All right, Happy Place is secured on my Emily Henry shelf. Well, I don't really have an Emily Henry shelf. It's more of just a romance shelf. So the plan now, it's about 4 o'clock. Since I got off early today, I thought that we could go to the gym since I didn't make it this morning. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm reading a book on my Kindle is to set up the Kindle on the treadmill and do a little walk while I read. It makes the walking go by so fast. I love walking anyways, and I get to read at the same time, so it's a win-win. It's honestly one of my favorite activities. So since we've been sitting all day, I'm gonna go to the gym, read on my Kindle. So I'm currently reading Life and Death and Giants by Ron Rindo. I literally started it yesterday, so I'm not that far into it. And so far, I mean, I'm probably 30 pages in, but it is really interesting so far. Basically, this veterinarian who has moved to a town in Wisconsin, this veterinarian moves out there because of some drama that happened in the town that he lived in before. So he kind of escaped to this very small town where there's a big Amish community, but this boy brings him his mom, who believes that she's having multiple children, like she's pregnant and about to give birth, and she's like passed out. She thinks she's gonna have like 5 kids or something, but it turns out that she is just giving birth to a huge baby that's like 18 pounds and however many inches. And that is how the story begins. The summary says, Gabriel Fisher was born an orphan. Yeah, so his mom passes away at childbirth. Gabriel Fisher was born an orphan, weighing 18 pounds and measuring 27 inches long. No one in Lakota, Wisconsin knows what to make of him. He walks at 8 months, communicates with animals, and seems to possess extraordinary athletic talent. But when the older brother who has been caring for him dies, Gabriel is taken in by his devout Amish grandparents who disapprove of all the attention and hide him away from the English world. It's hard to hide forever when you're nearly 8 feet tall. At 17, Gabriel is spotted working in a hayfield by the local football coach. What happens next transforms not only Gabriel's life, but the lives of everyone he meets. Life and Death and Giants is a moving story of faith, family, buried secrets, and everyday miracles. Yeah, we're gonna get ready, go to the gym, and read. the camera since yesterday after work. But yeah, we went to the gym, read Walking on the Treadmill. I've also been listening to Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. She's the lead singer of the band Japanese Breakfast. It's her memoir talking about a time in her life. This was around like 2014 when her mom passed away from cancer. So it's just kind of, yeah, a memoir and an ode to that time in her life dealing with her mother's death. And I'm really enjoying it. It's very interesting, and her writing is very beautiful, and it's narrated by her, which is cool. So yeah, I also listened to that a bit yesterday when I was at the gym. Hopefully right now I have a couple hours before we go to dinner with my family. We're gonna keep reading. Also this morning we were going through my husband's parents' neighborhood, and they were having a garage sale kind of all throughout the neighborhood at all these different houses, and someone was getting rid of a free bookshelf. So we've been looking for another bookshelf because ours is busting at the seams. Like, we have books piled up on top of other books. Up here we have like a whole stack up here. We have some out in the living room, so we needed another shelf, and we found a shelf that literally fits perfect for the area that we wanted one. So I'm gonna clean this up and probably transfer some books over to that. Yeah, we're gonna do that, clean it up a bit, put some books in, and then get back to reading. So right now I have about 30 minutes before we have to leave for dinner, and I wanted to give you guys an update about Life, Death, and Giants. I'm about 25% of the way through the book, and at this point we are getting multiple POVs of people in the boy's life. I'm trying to remember the name of the boy. That's one thing about when I read, I totally forget the characters' names. Gabriel. So Gabriel is the main boy in the story, and we're following his life. And like I mentioned, born 18 pounds, just this huge baby, growing super fast, and he has a special connection with animals. Because of his size, he's very good at sports, specifically baseball at the moment. And he's kind of just like this wonder of a kid, and people travel to go see him play baseball. He's like 7 years old, playing with like high school kids. And you get, currently in the story, you're getting the POV of his grandma and two local men who have kind of taken Gabriel and his brother under their wings. And I don't want to say too much about the story. I always think it's better to go into a book knowing as little as possible. So I don't want to give too much away. But I just finished the chapter this morning where something quite pivotal happens. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen next. With Gabriel and his life. So I'm really enjoying the multiple POVs because I think two of the POVs are written in first person, and then one of them is actually written in third person, going back and forth between first person narrative, third person narrative, but focusing on a different person's perspective every time, but in different narratives, in different forms of POV. I don't think I've ever read a book like that. Usually when it's switching back and forth, it's just either everyone's in first person or everyone's in third person. It's a very unique way to write a multiple POV story. Also, I can tell that a book is well written when the characters are so well rounded. For example, one of the characters in this book, he's talking about his mom growing up, and he's talking about how she would listen to classical music in the car and at home. And so he was just mentioning, him listening to classical music and how it makes him feel like he's connected to his mom and all of that. And I studied communications, and so one of the classes that I took, I don't even remember the name of the course, but it was a class all about writing. I don't want to say creative writing because it wasn't focused on creative writing. I was a student studying communications with an emphasis in journalism. So this class was about writing other people's stories in a narrative form rather than a reporting form. And one of the things that we learned was taking those details and making connection with them when we're writing about another person's life. For example, like in the story, did I need to know that this guy's mom loved listening to classical music? No, I didn't need to know that. It's not a pivotal, you know, plot point to the story or anything like that. But details like that, when they're written by the author to help you connect more closely with the character and understand that character's relationship with another character. I don't even know how to describe it, but I just love when you get those little extra bits and pieces of someone's heart written in a story. I think is what creates very profound character building. Anyways, I'm really enjoying how this author is writing and the way that he is describing and helping us learn about these characters. So I'm gonna read for the next 30 minutes and I will update you guys probably tonight. So we're taking a break from reading to make a little afternoon drink, and I've been really obsessed with Olipops and Poppies lately. I saw this flavor ginger lime and I never tried this flavor before, and I'm curious to see what it tastes like, so let's do a taste test. Usually I like to add frozen berries, ice, and Chobani creamer to my sodas, but I want to taste this one just by itself before adding anything to it. Interesting. Yeah, just imagine sparkling water if you squeezed lime and put ginger into it. That's exactly what it tastes like. It's good. I think I like it. I already had a Celsius packet in my water today, so I wanted something less sweet, and this is definitely more refreshing versus sweet. I actually kind of like it. It's a lot more subtle than the other flavors, so I think I'm just gonna drink it like this. I don't think it would be good with creamer. I feel like that would just be a weird mix. It might be good though with frozen berries, so maybe I'll mix it in with some frozen berries, and yeah, that'll be our drink for the afternoon as we continue reading. So I'm currently 60% of the way through Life, Death, and Giants. Last night I read up until about 40%, and then it got really into Gabriel's life with football, and like his coaches and people involved in his football life were explaining how good he is at football and describing games and practices and stats and all of this football lingo, and I was getting a little bored and I was tired, so I fell asleep around the 40% mark, and right at the 50% mark, something very life-changing happens to Gabriel. So now I'm reading about this huge change that has happened in his life. That's really all I can say because I don't want to spoil the book for anyone. It shows me that I have 2 hours and 56 minutes left of the book. I don't know how accurate the Kindle is with its timing, but I mean, if I only have 3 hours of reading left for today and I don't have that much planned, I'm hoping that I can finish the book or at least get almost done with the book and then maybe finish it tomorrow morning before work or something. This book is definitely reading. I don't know exactly what genre this book is. I'd have to look it up, but to me it's reading like literary fiction because we're following Gabriel and then we have all these other characters in his life and we're getting their perspectives. So we're following less of a plot. There's not this huge plot that we're following. We are following this character Gabriel and these experiences that he's having as a man, as a young adult who is over 8 feet tall and like 400 pounds, this true giant in life, which is hence the name of the book. And I love reading literary fiction. I finished The Names a couple of weeks ago. I forget the author's name. The Names was very similar, where it was less following a big plot point and kind of like, I feel like when there's a plot, things are very fast moving and you get very invested in the plot and trying to figure out an ending. But The Names is very similar to this, where you're just following a lot of characters and how they are developing throughout the story, and the different things that are happening to them, and just really falling in love and becoming invested in these characters. And I love reading books like that. So I'm definitely enjoying Life, Death, and Giants so far. I really have no complaints with the story. Anyways, I'm really enjoying all the characters in this book. There's a few that we get less of their POVs, and they're not as interesting to me, but the characters that we do get their POV more often, I really like reading about them, especially the veterinarian in the story, Thomas, and Gabriel's grandma, Hannah. I love reading about them and their perspectives. So now we're going to make our little drink and keep reading for the rest of the afternoon. We do have to go over to Blake's family's house later this evening, but that's in several hours, so we'll keep reading and I will update you guys with how I'm feeling about the book. The best frozen fruit from Costco. Break from reading. I just got to part 4, which is a little over 80% of the way done with the book. Part 3 was a lot. Quite a bit is revealed. There's a ton of character development, and I just need to like take a breath and eat because I'm hungry, and just breathe for a sec and kind of process everything I just read. One thing I'm really enjoying about the book, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I've always my whole life been really fascinated by the Amish. And every time I live in California, and I don't think I've ever met an Amish person out here, but I went to college in Idaho and we ran into an Amish community one time, and they were having a festival to like raise money for the new school that they were building, and they were selling pigs and baked goods and furniture that they made, and it was like one of the best days of my life. Being there and like talking with them and learning a bit more about them. So anyways, obviously in this story, Gabriel's grandparents are Amish, and so I am learning so much about what it means to be Amish, especially being an Amish wife. And yeah, it's very interesting. So that's one part of the book that I'm really fascinated by, is learning more about the Amish by reading about Gabriel's grandparents. this morning, and I have been, it's about noon right now, and today's a work from home day. This whole morning I've just been thinking about this book as I've been working, have interviews from the author going in the background. I'm very impressed and touched by this story in a way that I wasn't expecting. I expected that I would go into this book and enjoy it. And as I was reading, I was kind of predicting, what I would rate it and my thoughts about it. And during most of it, I was thinking I would give it probably 4.5 stars, which is a very high rating. I've only had one 5-star read this year. That was Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. That was my first book of the year. Gave it 5 stars. I haven't had a 5-star book since then, and it's the end of April. But as I finished Life and Death and Giants, just those last few chapters and characters' development and where they end up by the end of the story, and the insights that they have, and it all just turned out to be so beautiful and so well done. And I'm sitting here several hours later still impacted by this story, and I'm sure it's a story that will continue to impact me. And with that being said, Life, Death, and Giants will definitely be receiving 5 stars from me. First and foremost, and I've said this in other clips during this vlog, but the way that these characters are written is so well done, and watching interviews with the author this morning has made me have a greater appreciation for the writing and the reasoning behind why he created his characters and the inspiration for these characters has just made me love them more. Hannah Fisher and Thomas Kennedy, I was literally just thinking about them as I was doing work and I started tearing up. I just love them and I want the best for them. What I love so much about the story is Gabriel is the center of the story, but we focus so much on the characters surrounding Gabriel and how all of these people's lives were changed and formed because of their love for this peculiar boy. I just love when people that are so different and would probably never cross paths or be friends rally together and form relationships because of their greater love for someone else. I think there's one certain relationship and friendship that you are rooting for in the story. I think a lot of times when we read stories, we want this miracle to happen for the characters, and sometimes it happens that we see the characters end up in a place that makes sense for them and is truly best for them for the circumstances that they live in. Yeah, you just want the best for these characters and you love them and you want them to thrive, and I really hope that they are, and I believe that they are with where they end up. So with that being said, the character development in the story and the characters that are written by this author will live in my heart forever. Something that is bothering me and is blowing my mind is that not that many people are talking about this book. The author has 300 followers on Instagram. There's not a ton of interviews with him. They don't even hold this book at my local Barnes & Noble. It was free on Kindle Unlimited. I feel like this book would be one that more people are talking about. Maybe it just hasn't found the book talk world yet, which is also so beautiful because of the themes in this book of the Amish being far removed and how the Bandys of the world can ruin someone. I think is actually so special that this book is in its own little bubble, and people that just really love this book and somehow found it we're all kind of like, I don't know, I feel like we're in this little world together. I hope that more people find this book. I do think that the right people will find this story. I want to share some quotes from this book. Hannah, the grandmother, her grandfather was someone that wasn't very well liked in the community, and she obviously saw that firsthand. And she says, "When I was a young woman, I sometimes allowed myself to wonder the same thing. Often, even now, I look at other couples too and ponder. It is hard to know a man well, even one well loved, and each marriage journey takes its own winding path. Sometimes the path becomes a maze and a wife is lost forever. Like, reading that, especially in the context of this quote, is so heartbreaking, but I think it's written so beautifully, even though it's so sad. He also writes, novels cast a spell, carrying me off to far worlds or into the minds of characters that seemed fully flesh and bone. That is exactly how I feel about these characters and this book. And one of the final quotes, which is, I think, the message and heart of the story. The last night they'd spoken, she told him everyone takes 2 journeys alone, the one that brings us to earth and the one that takes us to heaven. And it is the path we have trod in between that gives the measure of a life. It is the good we leave behind us, she said, that makes a life worth living. And with that, I will be finished talking about Life, Death, and Giants. If you happen to read Life and Death and Giants, I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you for following me along on this little cozy weekend full of reading. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.